Nikola Tesla was an exceptionally brilliant electrical engineer and was perhaps one of the greatest inventors that ever lived. He once declared, "What one man calls God, another calls the laws of physics." Using his God-given talents in physics, Nikola Tesla devoted his entire life wholly for the betterment of humanity and helped modernize the world. He gave us long-distance electricity transmission and created the famous Tesla coil. His electric induction motors operate our appliances and run our factories. He brought in the radio, robotics, remote control, and computer technology. Nikola Tesla also contributed to various fields of physics, leading the way to the Second Industrial Revolution. His alternating current, or AC electric system, has remained the primary electrical system and is still used across the world today. In 1870, Nikola Tesla studied at Higher Real Gymnasium in Karlovac. He was intrigued by the demonstrations of electricity by his physics professor and was curious to know more. Nikola Tesla exhibited unbelievable mathematical skills. He was able to perform integral calculus in his head, so much so that his math teachers accused him of cheating. He completed his 4-year study program in just 3 years, graduating in 1873. The achievements that followed were not only due to Nikola's mental prowess, but also sheer will. He had big dreams and was determined to accomplish them. An example is how, after listening to an account of the Niagara Falls, Nikola Tesla began to visualize a big wheel run by the falls. He told his uncle that he would go to America someday and carry out this scheme. Indeed, his system of alternating current, or AC, was later chosen to harness the power of Niagara Falls and transmit electricity to Buffalo. Nikola Tesla's life was certainly not uneventful. He had spades of harrowing catastrophes, from near-drowning incidents to terrifying escapes, 3 times inflicted with malaria, cholera, and some other serious ailment. He was passed up as hopeless by his doctors. Nikola Tesla's heart was in mathematics and the sciences. It was his deepest wish to become an engineer, but his father constantly pushed him towards becoming a priest. Then Nikola fell gravely ill, and it was thought he would not survive. To encourage his recovery, his father absolved Nikola from the imposed priesthood path and allowed him to attend engineering school instead. Soon after his father's concessions, Nikola made a miraculous recovery and attended the renowned Austrian Polytechnic School at Graz to study engineering. Aged 17, he devoted himself seriously to invention and discovered that the rigorous self-discipline that he had imposed on himself during his youth yielded immense benefits. At the age of 21, as a student at Graz, Austria, Nikola Tesla dreamt of a gorgeous rotating magnetic field, reliable motor that would be more efficient and cost-effective. In 1881, Nikola Tesla was living in Budapest and working for the Central Telephone Exchange. While strolling with his friend Anthony Szigeti in the sunset, he recited the poetry of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's play Faust, Letter for Letter.
Sie rückt und weicht, der Tag ist überlebt. Dort eilt sie hin und fördert neues Leben. Oh, dass kein Flügel mich vom Boden hebt, ihr nach und immer nachzustreben.
With these inspiring words, an idea appeared like a flash of lightning. Nikola Tesla captured his thoughts in a diagram drawn with a stick on the sand. This invention would forever change the world. The diagram depicted the induction motor and was presented and explained 6 years later in his lecture before the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. Nikola Tesla famously stated that invention is but the result of humanity's creative genius at work and of humankind's clear dominance over the physical kingdom, stating,
"Its ultimate purpose is the complete mastery of mind over the material world, the harnessing of human nature to human needs."
Tesla also stated,
"The day science begins to study the non-physical or spiritual phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence."
In February 1882, Nikola Tesla had another epiphany about motors. Suddenly, he had a vision of using a rotating magnetic field in his motor, the basis with which nearly all devices using alternating currents now operate. It took him 5 years to actualize this concept and make his motor work. He traveled to the United States in 1884, arriving there almost penniless, having lost his train ticket and personal assets on the way to the boat. He worked briefly as an electrical engineer at the Edison Machine Works, putting in 19 hours of work daily from 10:30 a.m. until 5 a.m. the next day. Nikola Tesla came up with a set of some 24 improved and redesigned pieces of equipment to replace Edison's existing machines. In under a year, Tesla had a fallout with Thomas Edison and resigned his position. In 1888, Nikola Tesla was invited to lecture at the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, which has been described as a classic of the electrical engineering field. George Westinghouse of Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company, the inventor of the railway air brake, was in the audience and totally absorbed by Tesla's spectacular lecture. Nikola Tesla believed his lifelong visions and flashes of inspiration, every thought and action he conceived, to be the suggestion of an external impression. This ultimately led to his formulation of the art of teleautomatics. Teleautomatics is defined here in Tesla's writings.
Long ago, I conceived the idea of constructing an automaton which would mechanically represent me and which would respond as I do myself, but of course in a much more primitive manner, to external influences.
Such an automaton evidently had to have motive power, organs for locomotion, directive organs, and one or more sensitive organs so adapted as to be excited by external stimuli.
Whether the automaton be of flesh and bone or of wood and steel, it mattered little, provided it could provide all the duties required of it like an intelligent being. My teleautomaton, for instance, opens up a new art which will sooner or later render large guns entirely useless, and will make impossible the building of large battleships, and will compel the nations to come to an understanding for the maintenance of peace.
Nikola Tesla's mind had developed to such an extent that he could formulate plans and solve problems abstractly, all in his head. His brain had become a virtual laboratory where he could successfully build mental pictures of any models, drawings, or experiments that he needed, all without putting pen to paper. Once an idea came, he would build it up in his imagination, make changes to its construction, operate the device mentally, tinker with it, and improve or address any shortcomings until he was satisfied. Only then would the actual physical construction begin. He found this modus operandi to have great merit, and in over 2 decades of inventing, his devices always worked as he meant them to, without exception. This method of invention by visualization, though intellectually satisfying, had one setback. He was unable to fully capitalize on the commercial aspects of many of his inventions. The speed with which his engineering creations were mentally conceived and formulated exceeded by leaps and bounds the time it needed to actually make them. Therefore, many of his valuable inventions never entered into production. For his great and immense scientific contributions to the world, Nikola Tesla was showered with numerous accolades. He was bestowed with 15 honorary degrees from universities across the world, amongst them Yale and Columbia in the United States, and 14 meritorious awards from various world-class institutions. With awe and respect, we look forward to finding out more about Nikola Tesla in the final episode of this series. Noble viewers, thank you for your delightful company today.